With the aid of Ukrainian aircraft attacking enemy positions and concentrations of military hardware, Ukrainian troops have killed 57 Russian invaders in the previous 24 hours in the direction of southern Ba. This was said by Ukraine's Operational Command South in a Facebook post, according to Ukrinform. The situation is challenging, chaotic, and under control by the defense forces in the southern Ba operating region as well as generally in the area of responsibility. The enemy is attempting to hold the occupied lines by defending them. The adversary is still launching multiple rocket systems, heavy artillery, mortars, tanks, and loitering munitions against our positions, the article stated. Over 40 spy drones were launched by the enemy in the previous day's unmanned reconnaissance. The paper states that the attack and army aircraft of the Ukrainian Air Force struck, in the Bashtanka and Borislav regions, respectively, a stronghold and area of concentration of enemy forces and equipment. The Snyrivka region's enemy equipment concentrations and the Kherson district's air defense systems were both attacked by bomber and fighter aircraft. More than 140 fire missions were carried out by Ukrainian rocket and artillery units, including ones in Heroisk and Radinsk, where enemy personnel and equipment were gathered. 3 armored vehicles, 2 large-caliber howitzers, 2 tanks, and 57 enemy personnel were all lost. Damage was done to 2 automobiles and a howitzer. The command said, the Black Sea group of enemy forces contains 3 units without missile carriers on duty. The authorities in the capital are making every effort to ensure that, despite what Russia does, communication, heat, and power still exist. This was expressed by the mayor of Kyiv, Vitaly Klitschko, on Saturday during a national telethon on Ukrainian TV channels. When asked about a potential blackout in Kyiv, he responded, "We are doing everything to prevent this, but let's be honest, our adversaries are doing everything to leave the city without heat, without power, and without a water supply." In order to be prepared for any eventualities, Klitschko pointed out that the Kyiv city authorities are taking numerous situations into consideration. The city has prepared a supply of heating points, food, and water, as well as a reserve of diesel fuel, power generators, and other supplies. In addition, he urged Kyiv residents to take the appropriate precautions. "We'll make every effort to ensure that such. We cannot guarantee that a scenario would not occur, so each of us must also be ready to act as swiftly as possible," the mayor stated. In order to acquire more tanks, armor, and artillery, Ukraine actively collaborates with its partners. In his video address to the nation, President Volodymyr Zelensky made this statement, according to Ukrinform. "Today, I'd want to draw special attention to the National Guard members who serve in the defense forces to protect our state in the Luhansk region. Particularly noteworthy are the National Guard soldiers from the 27th Pechersk Brigade, who, along with ground forces units, extremely successfully destroy enemy equipment and occupiers. Regards, gentlemen. We're making every effort to ensure that you and the other soldiers have more chances to pursue the adversary. And from this perspective, the upcoming weeks will be crucial. We are working closely with our allies to procure additional tanks, more armor, and more artillery for Ukraine," Zelensky added. He also lauded the efforts of Ukrainian border guards who, in face of ongoing Russian provocations and bombardment, continue to fortify the borders in the regions of Sumy, Chernihiv, and Kharkiv. The president further stated that the Donetsk region continues to be the target of the occupiers' worst treatment. According to Ukrinform, the U.S. Department of Defense recently unveiled a new package of security aid for Ukraine that includes funding for the upgrade of Hawk surface-to-air missiles in preparation for their future deployment to Ukraine. Aside from that, the package comprises 40 armored riverboats, 1,100 Phoenix Ghost tactical UAVs, 45 modernized T-72B tanks with improved optics, communication, and armor, as well as secure communications and surveillance systems for Ukraine. Additionally, funding is allocated for the upkeep and operational preparedness of already transferred equipment as well as for the upgrade of 250 M1117 armored security vehicles. 34 additional children from the Kherson region of Ukraine were forcibly deported to Anapa, Russia, by the Russian invaders. According to Ukrinform, Yaroslav Yanushevich, the chief of the Kherson Regional Military Administration, posted this on Telegram. According to the chairman of the Myrna district, the occupiers abducted 34 children from the village of Preobrazhenka and transported them to the Russian city of Anapa. Valentina Halavata, Settlement Military Administration. The governor said, the duration of stay, supposedly for recreation, was again extended for another week. The parents were promised that their children would be returned by the end of the week. According to Ukrinform, 12 students from the Olishki boarding school in the seized Kherson region were transported by the Russian invaders to the Russian-occupied Crimea. As of October, since the start of the major fighting, 8,732 Ukrainian children were thought to have been sent to the Russian Federation, and 238 more were thought to be missing. The Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, ZNPP, in Ukraine now has access to external power after 2 days when it had none owing to Russian shelling. United Nations Agency for Nuclear Energy, IAEA, reported in a statement, according to Ukrinform. It should be mentioned that on Friday at around 2 o'clock, all 6 ZNPP units had their 750 kV power supply restored, and the 8 operational emergency diesel generators had been shut off and placed in standby mode. As a result, the 6 reactors at the ZNPP are once more receiving the electricity they require for cooling and other crucial nuclear safety and security operations via the 750 kV connection. The operational status of all units has not changed, according to the IAEA. In order to provide steam to the site, Units 5 and 6 are in a semi-hot shutdown state. Plans are being made to progressively heat up both units to a hot shutdown state. 4 additional units are still in cold shutdown. The highly critical nuclear safety and security scenario this large nuclear power facility is facing is made abundantly obvious by power outages. The courageous workers at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant have so far consistently maintained the 6 units' safe operation. But this cannot continue. To avoid a nuclear accident, I have urged the quick creation of a nuclear safety and security protection zone around the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. We cannot continue to waste time. IAEA Director General Rafael Grossi stated that we must take action before it is too late. According to Ukrinform, on November 2, enemy bombardment caused Zaporizhzhia NPP to lose all power. Analysis of the situation on the front lines led to. At a meeting of the Supreme Commander-in-Staff, Chiefs, countermeasures against missile and drone terror were considered. Today, I convened another meeting of the Supreme Commander-in-Staff Chiefs that lasted for 3 hours. We conducted a thorough analysis of the situation on the front lines, including all angles, the energy front, and the border issue. Reports were given by the Commander-in-Chief, Commanders, Intelligence Chief, Prime Minister, Defense Minister, and Head of Border Guards. We are aware of what the adversary is planning. We will react and carry on with the liberation of our country. Additionally, every aspect of the defensive troop supply support was carefully examined. These include tools, weapons, communication, and winter uniforms. A number of key countermeasures against the use of missiles and drones for terrorism have been addressed individually. Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, said in his evening address that as a result, the ratio of shooting down has increased, but more still needs to be done. He asserts that the Ukrainian sky must be completely protected, and that will be accomplished in any way. According to Zelensky, Ukraine anticipates receiving encouraging news about air defense and missile defense in the upcoming weeks. Additionally, Ukraine collaborates closely with allies to acquire more artillery, armor, and tanks. Today, as part of the defense forces, I'd want to pay special attention to the National Guard members who protect our state in the Luhansk region. The National Guard's 27th Pechersk Brigade men in particular, who along with other battalions, utterly successfully destroy all enemy equipment and occupants with the ground forces. Many thanks, guys. You and the other soldiers will have more chances to pursue the enemy because of what we are doing, Zelensky added. The president also praised the border guards who, in spite of ongoing Russian provocations and shelling, continue to fortify the borders in the regions of Sumy, Chernihiv, and Kharkiv. The U.S. Department of Defense recently unveiled a new package of security aid for Ukraine that includes funding for the upgrade of Hawk surface-to-air missiles in preparation for their continued shipment to Ukraine. Additionally, the U.S. will provide 45 T-72B tanks that have been modified with better optics, armor, and communication, along with 1,100 Phoenix Ghost tactical UAVs, 40 armored. To Ukraine, riverboats, private communications, and surveillance equipment. Additionally, funding is allocated for the upkeep and operational preparedness of already transferred equipment, as well as for the upgrade of 250 M1117 armored security vehicles. Over the course of the day, the enemy launched more than 500 attacks on the Zaporizhzhia region, over 40 of which occurred inside the walls of populous villages. Oleksandr Staruk, head of the Zaporizhzhia Regional Military Administration, said on air of the national telethon, "There are no changes in the combat zone, the positional war continues, daily shelling continues." Over the past day, more than 500 strikes were launched, of which almost 40 were within the boundaries of populated settlements. But our guys hold the front line. The direction of Zaporizhzhia. Not the main one right now because the main fighting is happening in the Donetsk region, Staruk continued. According to reports, the enemy closed checkpoints, a commandant's office, and redistributed the men in its units in Kamyanka, Zaporizhzhia district. 3 attacks on the adversary were launched during the day by the Ukrainian Air Force. 9 hostile individuals, clusters of weapons and military equipment, and an ammo depot were all struck by the missile and artillery forces. The report of the General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces as of 1800 hours on November 5 makes this claim. As previously mentioned, the adversary works to keep the temporarily taken territory, focuses its efforts on limiting the defense forces' actions in specific directions. Attempts to launch an onslaught in the directions of Bakhmut, Avdiivka, and Novopavlovka. The adversary conducts aerial reconnaissance, reinforces border defenses in some directions, and shells defense forces units near the contact line. In addition, the enemy is still attacking vital infrastructure and civilian homes, breaking laws of war and international humanitarian law. The adversary carried out 4 missile strikes, 5 airstrikes, and more than 20 MLRS attacks during the day. More than 20 settlements in the Kharkiv, Donetsk, Zaporizhzhia, Kherson, and Mykolaiv regions were attacked by the enemy, reads the report. There hasn't been much of a change in the circumstances in the Volyn and Polisia directions. The enemy fired tube artillery and mortars in the direction of Sloboshansky on the areas of Budarki, Libok, Zolochiv, and Krasny. The communities of Orytsov and Staritsia in the Kharkiv region. Tanks, mortars, tube artillery, and rocket artillery were shot in the Kapyansk and Lyman directions on the villages of Divrikna, Kislivka, and Tabayevka in the Kharkiv region, Makiivka, Nevsk, and Ploshchanka in the Luhansk region, and Torska and Yampolivka in the Donetsk region. Tanks and artillery were launched in the direction of Bakhmut against the Donetsk region's settlements of Andriivka, Bakhmut, Bakhmitsk, Zelenopilya, Klishivka, Mayersk, Opatin, Solidar, Spirn, and Yakovlivka. Tanks and artillery were launched in the direction of Avdiivka against the communities of Vodian, Kamyanka, Krasnohorivka, Marinka, Nevelsk, and Pervomaisk in the Donetsk region. Mortars, tube, and rocket artillery were launched in the direction of Novopavlovka on the communities of Bohoyavlenka, Velika Novosilka, Vuladar, Vermaivka, Pavlovka, Novukrainka, and Prichistivka in the Donetsk region. Within Zaporizhzhia. In the Zaporizhzhia region, tanks and artillery were shot in the direction of the communities of Hulyapolsk, Dorozhnyanka, Zaliznikny, Malinivka, Novodunilivka, Uspenivka, and Shkerbeki. The enemy opened fire in the direction of southern Ba on more than 20 communities close to the contact line. Particularly hard hit were Zoria, Myrna, and Shyrok in the Mykolaiv region, as well as Bilahurka, Daviduk Breed, and Pravdine in the Kherson region. The Ukrainian forces attacked the Radensk settlement's Russian soldier buildup in the Kherson region. There is information about enemy losses. The Air Force of the Ukrainian Armed Forces launched 3 attacks on enemy people, weapon and military equipment groups, and air defense systems throughout the day. A Merlin UAV was downed by the Ukrainian air defenses. Detailed evidence indicates that 2 Ka-52. The day before, helicopters were destroyed. During the day, the missile and artillery units of the Ukrainian Armed Forces attacked 9 enemy individuals, a collection of weapons and military equipment, and a storage facility for ammunition.